this time last year, I was in a right state. I couldn't go out of the house, I couldn't talk, I didn't look after myself, I didn't eat. I thought my life was, you know, that was my life. But since coming to the YMCA, it's absolutely changed my life. And, you know, I recommend anyone if they come here to take it on board, take everything on board, and don't be shy, don't be fearless. You know, people are here to help, and they really truly do care. And, you know, grab both hands.
The accreditation is just the start. I mean, for us, it's the it's the start of a new thing for the YMCA movement. I mean, obviously, we'd love as many YMCAs, all YMCAs, to get this accreditation with us, and we'd like to help as many YMCAs do that. For us, it's been a really positive experience, and I'm hoping that in future that it will become like a platform on which the YMCA could develop the services that it does.
The thing about the YMCA Insyc Standards is they are unique to the YMCA and they cover all the areas of our work. So other standards like IIP or the Supporting People framework will only look at certain areas of our work, and Insync enables the YMCA to get a much more rounded picture. Now we can use evidence more than once. My own YMCA recently did Investors in People, and we've just used the same evidence as evidence for Insync as well. So it hasn't caused us an awful lot of extra work. And I've also found with external funders, when they ask about quality standards, I've always explained that we're using the YMCA Insync Standards, explain what it is, and we've never had a problem with that. We've never been asked to do an additional quality standard instead.
The whole Insync Standards process is an opportunity to create some form of consistency within the movement.
I think if I met somebody who wasn't involved in the Insync process, I'd ask them why not. And usually the why not is then followed by, well, we haven't actually got the time. To which my argument would be, the chances are that you're actually doing everything that you need to do to complete the standards. Or all that's being asked is that you actually write it down within the particular workbooks, and then you actually formulate your evidence. Speaking as someone who took almost 2 years to do it, I'm going to now say it's actually not a big job. But we went through enormous changes in those 2 years, and I think it can be done a lot quicker. So if somebody was to say they're not doing the standards, I'd say why not? It's not as difficult as you think. And there are plenty of people to help you. Yeah. There are plenty of people who you can phone up and would give you advice and information.
A lot of YMCAs are doing the work, and it is just a case of writing it down and evidencing it. But if there are areas where they aren't doing the work at the moment and they need to develop, there's a lot of support to do that within the movement, between YMCAs, through things like the regional forums where we get together, sharing information, and there's a lot of support out there for YMCAs if they want to take part in Insync.
Well, working with the different standards gave us not just a framework for looking at what we're doing, but it also made us really, it challenged the very core values of why we do certain things. For instance, the client involvement started off with us having a real hard look at our policy on member engagement, and we looked at that whole policy and said, well, what do we want to achieve here? Is it just about us getting information from our members, or is it about us using the process to help them develop as individuals?
I come here 15 months ago to the YMCA. For the first 3 months it was quite negative. I just used a place to sleep in, that was it. Didn't get involved in anything, didn't interact with nothing that was going on in the hostel, and told myself this is a better way of life than the life I've been living. Then I started getting involved in activities and certain groups that were going on in the hostel, and then I was asked to go on the members panel and become part of the members panel and the policies panel. That consists of, you know, anything, suggestions that come up, we'll sit down, we'll go through them, we'll discuss them, and they'll be passed or not passed or sent to a team meeting, and a decision be made from there. I had a lot of input in things that have gone on in the hostel. I actually started a drug and alcohol group, discussion group up, for people to come down of a Monday evening for 2 hours to sit in a relaxed atmosphere, you know, and just chat about the journey, where drugs have took them, and what direction they're going in, if any. So that was up and running. That was a suggestion I made. I got the backing from the staff on that.
As an organisation that wants to be committed to quality and to standards, it's all about being committed to learning and being open-minded and being able to take information from a variety of sources. So it's not just about them as individuals developing, but us as an organisation learning from them and them learning from us.
The Insync process has made us think about how we do things. And as we went through that thinking process, we identified certain gaps. And because of those gaps, we have then had to consider ways of dealing with the gaps, and considering, for example, the one that comes to mind is regarding policies. We know we have policies, they're dotted around the organisation, but the Insync process has made sure that we have rationalised them all, we've got them all into one place, we go through a proper review of those policies. So a very helpful routine that we wouldn't have done had we not had the Insync process. It's prioritised and focused our thinking. I could only but recommend to any YMCA, please go through and sign up to the Insync process, but don't be fooled. You need to make sure that you go in with your eyes wide open. It's a challenge, but you will see some real benefits as a result of going through the procedures.
Also, the YMCA standards rely on peer assessors to take a key role in the verification and the accreditation process.
I attended the peer assessor briefing day to find out more about the Insync standards and how they were going to be assessed, to look at the system and see if that was something that I thought added value to it. And after attending the assessment day, I decided to become a peer assessor and contribute my skills and what I could offer to that.
I think from the peer assessment perspective, with everybody coming from the same Christian ethos background, and also a sense of understanding of what the YMCA is about, because often it is a difficult organisation to understand. I think you're coming in with a feeling, well, certainly with a feeling of empathy towards the organisation you're actually assessing, and bearing in mind that it's definitely not an inspection, it's a process for encouraging them to improve.
Being relatively new to the YMCA when I attended the peer assessment training, it was very useful to meet a lot of people in our training group. There was a resident of a YMCA and right through to the CEO of another YMCA, board members, other members of staff that had come from youth work backgrounds, quality backgrounds. And there was a wide range of people that it was good to network with, meet, find out about their YMCAs, and I've continued to keep in touch with quite a few of those.
I think, having been peer assessed at our YMCA, the assessment visit gives people a chance to actually come in and feel what's going on, rather than seeing something that's just written on a bit of paper or put on a CD. If they can actually come in and see the physical building and in a strange sort of way kind of feel the vibe about how people are when they're in the building.
At Liverpool for the interim, Darren met us, and as we walked through reception, two of the residents spoke to him by first name, and although that's not necessary in a YMCA for it to function brilliantly, it gives you an idea of how involved the chief exec is with the service users.
You'd have never picked up that type of information from a workbook, a CD, and like I say about the vibe as well, going around and seeing what's actually happening is so different from reading about it or looking through all the evidence.
Because the movement wanted the YMCA standards, it's really important that the movement owns the standards, and so therefore that there's accountability back to the movement in looking at the standards. The mechanism for doing that is that we have a standards steering group, which I chair. The steering group consists of about 8 people from around the movement, and we oversee the standards processes. In the beginning, that group developed the standards, and it would now be responsible for making any changes to them. And we also look at the policy and procedure and check that people are engaging with the standards and that everything's running smoothly from the movement's point of view.
I think one of the things that gives Insync some real rigour and robustness is the fact that there is an external accreditation panel made up of representatives from agencies and organisations that work in a similar environment to the one in which the YMCA works. And it is that panel that makes the award for accreditation.
They belong to the local association, and they're there at a group of local associations request that they ask YMCA England to come back with the standards that the movement agreed to. So, you know, it's a little bit, you know, by the people, for the people kind of aspect.
What's very positive about the YMCA Insyc Standards, as we said, that they've come from the movement and that they are bespoke to the YMCA movement, but they've also been validated by external bodies. For example, the charity commissioners, who are the main regulators of charities, have endorsed the Insyc Standards. The Tenant Services Authority, who are responsible for regulating housing associations, they also warmly commend the YMCA Insyc Standards. And the National Youth Agency, that is the umbrella body for all youth organisations in England, have also said that the Insyc Standards provide a very positive framework for developing work with young people. So I think to have those external regulators and those external bodies endorse the YMCA Insyc Standards gives that credibility, but also indicates the amount of work that has gone in to ensuring that these are high quality standards for the YMCA movement.
I think it can only strengthen the movement if there are quality standards, and it brings it together when all the member YMCAs are working towards the same goal. And interestingly, YMCA England, as much as they hold the standards through the standards unit, are signed up to Insync and are going through the same process of self-assessment, which, you know, to hold that and to be doing it, I think is really important.
I think it would mean more to individual YMCAs who have completed the standards if everybody had to complete the standards, because we're still in a position where you don't have to if you don't want to.
I think it might mean more that you've done it when it wasn't compulsory.
Yep.
If it was compulsory and everybody had to sign up to Insync, would it mean as much as we've done this without any obligation because we wanted to improve and because it was important to us, rather than because it was a requirement of being a YMCA?
No, that's a fair point.
It's important to remember too that this is an evolving process, and in a way one would always sort of introduce it on a voluntary level to begin with, and I think as the Insync process sort of rolls out, I think it will be a way of obviously sharing good practice around the movement, and in the end, of course, what will happen is that those YMCAs who perhaps don't fit the stereotypical YMCA or the standards, those YMCAs will have to be addressed at some point, and Insync would seem to be a good process.
At the moment, the standards are voluntary and YMCAs choose to undertake them, and that's the preference. We want YMCAs to do the standards because they see value in doing the standards, and because they're producing some improvement, continuous improvement in the quality of their work, and because they're improving the outcomes for young people and communities. That's the reason for doing the standards, and it's much better that YMCAs do the standards for those reasons than because somebody's told them they must. But we're having a whole conversation in the movement at the moment about what it means to be a member of a movement, what are the rights and responsibilities of membership, and whether we all need to be working to the same quality standards needs to be part of that conversation for the future.
Because ultimately it is about changing people's lives, and we should be, as organisations, committed to quality, and this is a great standard. It's a great standard to achieve what we want to achieve, and bearing in mind we designed it, you know, we all agreed to it, and we should all sign up to it.